we'll wait for a couple of more minutes and we'll let people join in. A very warm welcome to all of the students, aspiring study abroad learners who've joined to know about the GMAT and how to ace the GMAT. We will wait for a couple of minutes, let more of you join, and then we'll start the webinar. Okay, I think we have enough learners. We can at least start with our introduction. I am Aprajita Tiwari. I'm a marketing manager here at upGrad Abroad. And with me, I have Seema, who's been very kind enough to accept our invitation to host this webinar with us about the tips to ace the GMAT. She's an associate manager outreach South Asia with GMAC. And if you don't know what GMAC is the Graduate Management Admission Council, which owns and administers the GMAC exam. I'm sure all of you know about the popular GMAC exam, which is your gateway to a career and a future abroad. Starting with the introduction, Seema, is there something else that you would like to add before we get on with the questions?
So I just wanted to say, like, when we talk about GMAC, so it was actually established in 1953. And the first GMAT was administered in 1954. So since then we've come a long way, but besides GMAT, we also own and administer the NMAT as well as the executive assessment also. So that's NMAT is again used for admissions into the Indian universities, but yeah, a lot of resources are also there, like business fundamentals and GMAS, where the students can actually learn topic areas for their management. You know, if they're especially not from the management program, they can actually go there and learn those, and then you know, showcase to the business schools that they're ready for those programs as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to offer with respect to GMAC.
Okay, that is great. Thank you so much for being kind enough to host our webinar and make our learners more aware of what you guys do and how can they ace the GMAT. Coming to our first question, so we asked all of you certain popular questions, doubts, apprehensions that you had regarding the GMAT, and I'm sure all of you are aware that we have a newer version which is called the Focus Edition now, which you can take, I think, starting August, if I'm correct.
So the registrations actually start on August 29th, to be exact. The registration opens. The actual testing is, you know, set to start in Q4. The exact date has not been released, but yeah, around October, November, December, that period. But we'll be out with the date soon. So, you know, all the people who are looking to actually take the exam Focus Edition, then they would be able to plan it accordingly.
Okay, so we know upGrad Abroad, the programs that we have and the collaboration that we have with universities, the tie-ups that we have, we don't require the GMAT or the GRA for you to pursue your degree abroad. But however, there are a lot of you who go in through direct admissions, which means you go to higher, you know, a top Ivy League universities, you want to directly apply to universities, for which this is an exam that you need to take in order to qualify for certain degrees. And starting with the questions, the first one is, let me just navigate. Okay, so what are the new features that we have in the GMAT Focus Edition as compared to the older version?
Okay, so overall, obviously, there's an entire change in the structure. Like when I say entire change, there are a lot of things that actually remain the same, but you know, in terms of section wise, there's difference. But you know, I'd like to kind of like talk about the testing experience or the test taking experience that has changed immensely. One is, of course, as you know, as you can see on the screen, the review and edit feature. Typically, even now, just the same as the earlier version of the GMAT, both the versions of the test, you know, are computer adaptive, or the question adaptive nature remains. That means within a section, they have to answer the first question and then they have to move on to the next question. But with the new Focus Edition, when they reach the end of a section, they will be able to go back and review the questions that the candidates have bookmarked. They will also be able to review other questions as well, but it's best that, you know, when, let's say, you are actually going through a section and if you're unsure about a particular question, then you can bookmark and you know exactly which question to come back to and review it. But this is, let's say right now, the new section is like 45 minutes, each of the sections. So if you have 2 to 3 minutes remaining in those 45 minutes, you'll be able to come back and review those questions, and you'll be able to change up to 3 responses. So,
Okay.
which is like a massive change. And honestly, they will have only sufficiently that much time to kind of like review it, no matter, you know, even if they were allowed to kind of like change all the responses, that's realistically what is actually possible. The second one, as you've given here, official score report with enhanced. I always say that this is my favorite one because there are cases where people do take the test multiple times. But what's important is, how can I go back and review it? Or, you know, is there something that's going to help me understand where I went wrong? In the current version of the GMAT, the enhanced score report is available for an additional fee. But now the official score report that the candidate gets, that will come with a lot of performance insights. That will be performance insights across the section, like as of now, like the total score, the section scores and the percentile rankings of each will be provided. There's an additional feature which is performance across the schools or programs. Let's say you wrote the GMAT exam, you send the score report to a specific school, and you will be able to see how you stack up against those other people who have sent the score reports to the same program. And this is based on like past 5 years of data. Then across question types, across content domain, across fundamental skills, across like time management, how much time people spend on a specific response and so on. So that's also there. Section order right now, it's 3 specified orders that, you know, candidates can follow, but in the new version, that's 6 combinations. Complete control and flexibility is there. Like I can decide the first section, I can decide what I want to do the, you know, in the second section, third section. Right now, it's just I decide the first section. That's it. And score sending, I think this is, everybody's going to be like super happy about this one. Right now on the online version of the exam, there is a great benefit. Before, you know, once a candidate writes the exam and they get the score of unofficial score report, they can see that after 7 to 20 days, they get the official score report. And they have 48 hours after they get the official score report on mba.com to very carefully contemplate and decide where they want to send their 5 free score reports to. In case of the testing center, the current version, what happens is, before the, you know, person writes the exam, they have to select those 5 programs. And then after the exam, they have an option of seeing their unofficial score and deciding, do I want to cancel the score, or do I want to kind of like, you know, reinstate it later? Because that's a lot of pressure for a student, you know, if you really think about it. In addition to that, there's one thing that people would be really, you know, attracted to. That is, so far in the current version, historical scores are sent to the schools as well. That means if you have taken like the GMAT twice or thrice, all of those scores will be sent to the business schools. In the Focus Edition, only the score that you choose will be sent to the business school. So yeah, these are the major changes, I'd say.
Okay, so I feel that a lot of times the exams change for the institution or the organization to better function. But what I can say here is you're changing the product to make it more efficient for the learner. So
Yes,
all of these new features that I can see are not for you to assess them better, but
correct.
for them to get the best scores, for them to answer in the best way possible, to manage time better. So I really like
Yeah,
that.
because I think I'd just like to add on to this one. In the current world, I mean, as the world is evolving, our time is getting really limited, and people who look at a business masters or, you know, the core MBA program as well, we don't, you know, they don't have a lot of time to prepare. And also there's the need for very focused you know, test taking experience as well. Like, it's too much of pressure already. There's a lot of prep pressure, there's a lot of like expectation pressure in that. Making it more accessible, I'd say, that's what, yeah, it's definitely happening.
That is amazing. That's very progressive and a very good thought. For all of you who are raising your hands and putting your questions in the question box, we will be taking all of your questions at the end of this presentation. You can put in your questions. We'll be addressing them after we answer all of these important features. And we'll be taking even more questions post the webinar. You can mail us at social@upgradabroad.com. My colleague Arushi will be dropping in the email handle as well as all of our social media handles. And you can get in touch with us for more detailed counseling and more detailed knowledge about the GMAT, whether to take it, not to take it, for which school to take it, etc. Going on to the next slide. So obviously we discussed about how the exam structure has changed. Can we talk a little bit more about the pros and if there are any cons with the new structure?
Okay, I'd say there's only like pros either ways. First of all, the biggest thing would be the exam is getting shorter by 1 hour. So in the current version of the exam, you have 4 sections, which is the quantitative reasoning, which is like students have to answer the questions, like 31 questions in 62 minutes. The verbal reasoning, 36 questions in 65 minutes, and the integrated reasoning section, 12 questions in 30 minutes, and the analytical writing, which is an essay, again, 30 minutes to write the argument essay. But now that's actually moving to 3 sections, which is the quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and new section called the data insights, each with 45 minutes. Quant with 21 questions, the verbal with 23 questions, and the data insights with 20 questions. So that's a major change to the structure, of course.
Is there any specific reason as to why you've made the exam shorter or you've divided the sections like that? Is there any reason behind the change in structure, or do you think it's just efficiency or how the students just respond and are able to write better?
So to start with, I did tell you how, the primary reason with reducing the duration of the exam was definitely to improve the test taking experience, as I mentioned earlier. But besides that, there is a certain logic behind the way that it has been reduced. It's not like, okay, chop, chop, and then, you bring it down to this. Also with the current demands or the kind of skills that are in demand in the business world today, both in the management education scene as well as, in terms of a career or what the employer expects, that's definitely, certain skills like critical thinking skills, decision making skills, higher order reasoning and data literacy, as we know it, for performing well in these ambits that I've just talked about. And that's the idea behind bringing in these, bringing these specific sections. So when you look at the question types that have been included, for instance, in the quantitative reasoning, now you just have problem solving. In verbal reasoning, you have critical reasoning and reading comprehension. And we have the less relevant content area, like the sentence correction, actually not there anymore. Okay. And in you don't have the essay anymore. It's completely gone. In terms of data insights, which is an altogether new section, it actually measures the let's say an updated calibration of the digital and data literacy. That is the most relevant skill, which is required in the business world today. So that's probably the the logic behind it, or the reason behind the entire thing. It is not random. It is definitely thought through with a lot of research and also with a lot of collaboration with the business schools themselves. So
Okay.
yeah.
So that actually brings me to a question of my own, wherein I'm thinking, is this new exam tougher, or is it easier, or it is the same? How would you, what is your take on that?
I always say that this is a very funny question because I get asked this a lot. And my response always is that neither the current version nor the new version is tough. As I keep mentioning, it's a lot to do with perception when it comes, when you talk about the GMAT. The reason I say that, you can't really call either of the exams tough is because of the adaptive algorithm that's there, the CAT or the CAT or the computer adaptive algorithm. What it does is, for the same reason that within a test center that no two people actually get the same set of questions or the same items as we call it, it each test adapts to, the test taker. Okay. So when I say that my exam is hard, or that's how the perception gets built, isn't it? Or when I say the exam is easy, it's my experience, which is pretty much incomparable to the other person's experience, right? And second thing is, I always think that the reason why people say that a GMAT is hard has a lot to do with the importance of management education. A lot of people consider this at a stage where they start taking things very seriously, or they do take, management education very seriously. Even a business master's or an MBA program, there's a lot of time crunch that people have. So I can't afford to, like, this is my, I don't have a lot of time. I have to invest this much amount of time into it. So the pressure mounts up quite a bit. So I think that has a lot to do with the perception of like difficult or easy than the questions themselves, because having gone through that process, I know for a fact that the questions themselves are not hard.
So what do you think would be an ideal window? So suppose I'm a working professional and I want to take the GMAT and further continue my education abroad. What is the correct time window that you think is needed for them to at least prepare well? Is there a certain time frame that you think they should keep in mind before taking this exam?
Okay, so I'm going to draw a bit from my personal experience here as a test prep instructor also. I've seen people actually do well within like a couple of weeks. Sometimes people do take a couple of months, irrespective of whether they're a working professional or whether they are, a student who has definitely more time. But on an average, you can actually, be ideal. And we have a study planner for that as well. Like the current one, ideally, we're looking at an 8-week study plan, meaning that, approximately, 8 weeks would be where you can actually sufficiently go through the questions, the exam structure, practice with the practice exams, and then be ready for, taking the exam. And with a focus edition, you'd be surprised. And I think, which is a fun fact as well, it's like a 6-week study plan. So you understand that the amount of prep time that we have actually reduced there.
Correct. So you're saying 6 weeks with the focus edition and 8 weeks prior to that.
But then again, that's very subjective, very subjective. So while that's like on an average, on a large listing, but I think it is very subjective for people in a large way, in a lot of cases.
Got it. Okay, so just to again remind you all of your questions will be taken. Please drop in your questions in the Q&A box. There is an email address on your chat wherein you can save that email address, drop in any query that you have related to studying abroad, any question, any concern, any field. We will arrange a free counseling session for all of you wherein you can ask every doubt that you have. Also, we will be taking your questions, so just have some patience. We are going through certain key points that you need to understand before you ask your questions, and Seema will be happy enough to resolve all of your doubts and queries post that. Okay, coming to the next question. Elaborating on the scoring system, maybe we could have a comparative sort of an analysis, Seema, as to how it differs, and does it greatly differ in terms of preparation as well, or do you think it is just a change in grading or scoring?
To start with, one, I'd say that the major changes, the current version is 200 to 800, and the new version is 205 to 805. Okay. While this, adding a 5 towards the end does help business schools as well as the candidates distinguish both the versions of the exam, that's not it. For all the changes that we have spoken about, you can clearly see that, the entire question types are not really differing. They can still prepare the same way. But in a sense, the entire structure has changed. The focus on the content areas have changed. The kind of features that are available that has changed, which is why both the testing scores are not comparable to each other. In the case of the current version, we've seen that, quant reasoning, verbal reasoning, which is what we can typically look at right now, is 6 to 51. In the newer version of the GMAT, it is 60 to 90 in each of the 3 sections. So that's a major change. But I also did mention that you can't compare both the scores as it is. Okay, what candidates should do is they should start looking at percentile rankings. See, percentile rankings have always been there. That's always been given in the official score reports as well. So percentile ranking basically means that if, let's say, I scored, I'm in the 72nd percentile, means that I perform better than 72nd percentile of the students, better than those many percentile of students. That's what it entails. So let's say if I'm looking at, if I scored a 605 on the current version of on a Focus Edition, if I scored a 605 on the Focus Edition, then typically I'm at a 72nd percentile, meaning that it would be equivalent to 640 on the current version of the GMAT, for example. Okay. So the concordance table, which is available on the mba.com, will allow the candidates to actually make that comparison. It is available there. And when they look at that, they'll understand why they should not be comparing the scores directly, because that would not be a clear indicator. And for those people who are wondering if the business schools are aware about it, they are 100% aware about it. All of the changes that have happened to the Focus Edition have been in collaboration with business schools. Okay, business schools, admissions committee, faculty, and other partners. So it's basis these that these changes have come about. So they're completely aware about looking at the percentile rankings as well.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so this is a very, very important question. What do these changes mean for the students? What does it mean in terms of if I want to take the GMAT, what does this change mean for me? What am I gaining through it?
I'd say the first thing would be a very enhanced test taking experience, a very accessible test taking experience, rather than saying enhance. Enhance sounds very complicated, but it's more candidate friendly, while maintaining the rigor of the exam, while making sure that the business schools get the right kind of right kind of measures to gauge the student or to gauge the candidate. While that is maintained, while the rigor of the exam is maintained, at the same time, all of the pressure points are actually taken off.
Okay.
Probably stuff that it's not related to the direct exam taking, but somewhere of the other, let's say the score sending aspect, or deciding do I have to cancel it or not, or a lot of those things actually add a lot to the pressure. And while doing the exam, you inherently start thinking of all of those things. So those pressure points have kind of been removed in terms of the entire test taking experience. Of course, shorter is, again, as I said, prep time. With reduction in prep time, that's going to make a lot of difference in terms of the way that a candidate would actually approach it, or they plan their preparation, they plan their timelines, and when they want to take it, that's going to change a lot.
Okay. So what Seema is trying to tell us is that this exam has not only made it easier for you to take this exam within a shorter window, but also the exam has become shorter, more efficient. It has taken off all your pressure points that would make you lose out on those quick marks that you could score, because you can review, you can edit, you can bookmark, you get a more detailed score. So these changes mean a lot for somebody who is taking a GMAT. That pressure gets off your head, which definitely means it's 1 or maybe 10 steps ahead of what the original format was. This is actually thinking for the students. It's helping you score better.
Yeah, that was put really well.
Thank you. And also, should students take, so I think this is something that we've covered repeatedly, that should students take the current GMAT Focus Edition or the earlier version? So right now you're saying the registrations are open, but they have to take both versions. Till when is that happening?
So Sorry, registrations. Can you just come the last bit? I didn't hear you.
So I mean that in August, registrations will be opened for GMAT Focus Edition. Is the original GMAT also there? Is it
Yes.
also open for registration? And till what time are we juggling between the two till the Focus Edition takes over and that becomes the new GMAT?
Okay. I'd say that rather than juggling, I've been telling everybody in this period are the lucky lot, because they get to experience both the versions of the exam. And that you are going to see that for a couple of months, wherein the phasing out will happen. As I said, the exact timelines we have not released. We would be releasing it soon as well. But once the test registration for the focus option, opens up, the current version will also be available. And there would be a couple of months wherein, the testing for both the versions are happening at the same time. So you can kind of like expect it for it to be there for a couple of months. So that's a good amount of window for those who, are already prepared, who are more comfortable with the current version of the GMAT. They get that sufficient time. And those who have been putting off their exam taking for a long time, they get to kind of like, oh yeah, I probably should take it now before, it kind of like winds up. So they have that window.
Okay, so again, they're still thinking about you. They're saying that if you were ready, prepared for your GMAT old version, that you're still safe because you can take it for another couple of months. It's still there.
Yeah.
Also, if you've been, putting it behind and saying that I don't have time to prepare now, you don't have to prepare for 8 weeks. You prepare for 6 weeks, and you can still go ahead and take that register for that August onwards. So now you don't have a reason to not book your GMAT exam.
So ideally, if one of the things that I do want to point out is if candidates are looking for their 2024 applications and like the round 1, round 2, especially both Indian universities as well as abroad, they're typically looking at the current version of the GMAT. That would be the most relevant, because if you look at like the timelines that I'm talking about, which is like Q4 where the testing will start, that's like October, November, December. You don't want to be kind of like cutting it close to the deadlines.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you suggest, this is very important. So I think I missed that out.
Yeah, definitely the current version of the GMAT.
Yeah. So 2024, if that is the year that you're planning for, then the old version still is a better choice for you as of now. But if you are planning and it's a 1-2 year plan of action that you have, then you can go ahead and take the new edition and prepare for that. This was a very important point. Okay, there's just one more question that I would like to ask from my side. Are there any tips? So I hear this a lot, tips and tricks regarding all of the exams. Is there any hack that you do this and you're going to score better, or is there any? So what are your top 3 tips? So you've been a trainer yourself. What are those?
Yeah.
That you would tell students?
This is like when I used to teach, the first thing that I used to tell the first timers when they came was, when you say tips and tricks, there are no tips and tricks because I actually enjoy teaching GMAT quite a lot because of the fact that there is an entire learning curve that, there is an entire learning journey, I would say rather, because I've gone through the same experience we were just talking about. Let's say when you deal with critical reasoning questions, when you deal with problem solving, when you deal with reading comprehension, it inherently changes the way you think and the way you assess situations, the way you solve problems. The entire preparation actually does change the way you actually assess things, or the way you actually see things in front of you. I mean, if I talk about critical reasoning itself, which is like inherent in throughout the entire GMAT, by the way, the higher order reasoning that we keep talking about, right? Let's say I'm going to take an example which is like very common for everybody. You will say, my friend got this particular scholarship and, so I'm going to apply for it as well. I'm going to get that. Or my friend didn't get through to this point, so I am not going to get it. Or let's say my friend wrote the GMAT and didn't perform well, so I think the GMAT is a hard exam. So the moment you think this, you start to think about the underlying facts and figures surrounding it. You start to assess, is this logically correct?
Yes.
and which is very essential in a business environment, because you are not talking about being in a a junior level position when you actually write the GMAT and then do a business masters. And I don't think anybody is actually looking to do that. People essentially want to transform their life. They want to transform their careers when they think about a management education, either as a business masters or a core MBA program. And you're talking about business leaders, and those are the kind of skills that are essential. And while preparing for the GMAT, I have seen this change in the thought process, for myself and in the, the candidates who have actually prepared for the exam as well. So yeah, it's definitely quite life-changing.
So there are no tips and tricks to
Yeah.
bust that myth. You have to prepare. You have to prepare well. And
But I can add a few things in terms of like going through the test. Just in terms of, I think this is applicable across both the versions of the exam. First one is probably understanding the test properly. I know a lot of people who just dive into it, do random questions, and then they decide, okay, this is hard or this is easy. The best thing is to initially take a practice exam, which is also available on mba.com, free of cost. They can sign up and then take the exam. One, it sets a benchmark to monitor your progress. Two, it actually gives a fair understanding of the entire set of the question types, the timing, and all sorts of things. Second would obviously be setting a realistic time schedule. We have talked about planning, and you've asked me, how much time do people need to prepare. Basis, let's say if it's a working professional, they might have a limited number of hours to prepare per day. And they have, you can't say that, oh, I'm going to, from today, tomorrow, I'm going to kind of like set aside this much time. I'm going to keep everything aside. I'm not going to have fun. I'm not going to hang out with my friends. I'm no work. I'm just going to focus on the not happening. If you are true to yourself and you are very realistically, if it's like 1 hour, if it's realistically possible, 2 hours, set that time and work with a realistic schedule. The third thing is, a lot of candidates at some point get stuck at a particular score. They get a certain score and they're not able to move forward from that specific score, which we often call it a score plateau. And they say that, yeah, this is me, I can't score more than this, I think I'm done, that's why it's hard. But the fact is, as I said, when you do questions randomly, I did the first set of practice set, I'm done. Okay, now I'll do another set, and I'm just consuming questions and without really knowing where I'm going wrong. And this is not just for GMAT. I think in every case it's applicable. You have to go back and review. You have to find out what you did wrong. And I think reviewing, in my experience, is a very, very essential part of, improving the GMAT score. Otherwise, people end up kind of like getting the same score again and again. So go back, maintain an error log, which really helps. Identify exactly what kind of question types you're going wrong in, what kind of content areas that you're going wrong in, and see if you're following the right kind of approach. Are you just guessing randomly, and then try to fix that particular problem. The last one is to deal with your test anxiety. Don't take half of the test now, half of the test later. Make sure that you are actually sitting through the entire exam, the entire timeline. If you're going to take the actual test in the morning, take your test in the morning. If you're going to take it in the evening, take it in the evening. Get that entire experience, what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear. That entire experience has to be exactly as is. So that's going to make you very comfortable as well.
Okay, so two very important things that you've touched upon here. One is something I think all of us grapple with, which is exam anxiety. And I think most of us have it. We don't understand it. And now with growing awareness, yes, we do. So very important that you take it when it's easy for you and try to ease yourself. That is something to understand and take care of. That is not something somebody else can take care of. That can take a very big part of your mindset, is struggling with that. So it's very important to grapple with that. Try to understand what effectively can you do in order to mitigate that.
Correct.
Also, the second thing, which was very important that you said, is knowing the test. I want to take the GRE or the GMAT. It's a very popular exam. People talk about it. My friends have taken it. I've heard about it. That's not enough. You need thorough knowledge. What sort of questions? And that can only
Correct.
be practice tests. You need to know what you're going to deal with. Nobody else on the same comparative scale can tell you that, hey, it's hard or not. Until unless you don't do many of those practice tests, you will not yourself be sure whether where do you stand in that scale in terms of measurement or of grades or evaluation. So have thorough knowledge. Whatever you don't know about Google today, and nowadays we have everything, all the answers are there on Google and on websites. So go and research and know more. Okay, thank you so much. That was very informative. The last bit, I really liked those tips. I think they're simple, but I think the most effective tips that I've heard till now. Before taking the questions that are here, I have quite a few questions. I would like to again tell you that all of the university partnerships that we have, that upGrad Abroad has, which is spread across 9 countries, over 100 courses, these tie-ups do not require you to take GMAT or GRE. Because you do 1 year online with an accredited university, and the whole system is built on the pillar, on the pretext that you already are capable or aware enough of the curriculum. You're prepared for the academic rigor of the university. So GMAT, GRE with upGrad Abroad is not required. You don't require it, but again, if you're going to another university that has a criteria that needs you to take this qualifying exam, or you want to apply to the Ivy League, or you have a specific school in mind whose educational requirements has this as one of the qualifying exams, this webinar will really help you understand how to crack it, how to ace it in your own way.
I just wanted to add one thing. So GMAT is actually accepted by like 7,700 programs across the world in like about 2,400 institutions and like across 110 countries. And why, when it comes to actually why students should actually take the GMAT is also because, one, obviously the competitiveness in their applications. Second thing is, I think a lot of people are not really aware about the funding that's actually available based on the GMAT also, like it's like an eligibility criteria. Like for instance, even Harvard offers the 100% tuition fee waiver for eligible candidates. It's not just like Harvard, like they're the top schools, but most of the programs that I'm talking about have these funding options, either partial funding or full funding as well. So you'd get a lot of these information within the university website itself across, across the globe, US, UK, and other countries as well, Europe and other places. So yeah, definitely do your research, do research also.
We again come down to research and evaluate where do you see yourself, what is the standing, which university, which country, what seems easy for you, what seems doable for you. So there's a lot of research that goes into it.
Yeah.
There is one model that says, I absolutely agree with Seema when she says that it's competitive, you get to know where you stand, you get waivers, you get funding based on this score. It is known by so many institutions and recognized by all of them, and standing with another model in tandem, wherein you don't have to give this exam, but other criteria, and both are fair models. It's just which one do you pick depending on your academic qualifications or your perception of where you see yourself.
Right.
Which university do you see yourself? So okay, we will take questions right away. We are running short on time. So there is, Saksham has asked us, when would these changes be in effect, by the end of this year or by September intake 2024? So Seema, would you like to take
that? They're in a sense kind of like saying the same thing, but yeah, end of the year, and September intake is the end of the year as well. Like your deadlines will get over by the end of the year for the, like, some of them, maybe Europe and other places could kind of extend a bit to the other, 2024 beginning. But mostly, if you're looking at US entirely, then yes, for sure. And India, of course, you are looking at the end of this year. But yes.
So if it's September 24, what do you suggest? Will the focus
of the GMAT. I mean, yeah, you are looking at the current version of the GMAT for the intake for 2024. As I said, you really have to be aware of the kind of universities that you're applying to, because you have to see when you're round 1, round 2 and everything are. Like, first of all, you need to have time for preparation. Second thing is you need to know that, you know, the exam timeline versus your, the what do you call, the when you receive your score and when you want to apply, you need to have your entire timeline planned out for all of those.
Correct. Okay, so the next question is, what is the fee for GMAT classes, Seema?
We don't offer, I mean, we administer the GMAT exam, and I've stopped teaching. So
Is there any rough approximate idea that you have that if they go in for a coaching, what would?
So I can't really comment upon that. But what I can talk about is we do have prep material that you can actually use for preparation. We have the GMAT official starter kit, which is like completely free, in which you have like 90 questions in the current version of GMAT and 70 in the new Focus Edition, which will keep getting added, where you can sort according to the questions and difficulty level and practice accordingly. And, you know, short lessons are also there. And you also have the, as I said, practice exam 1 and 2. Besides that, we do have prep material, the practice tests 3 and 4, 5 and 6, which is, you know, which can be purchased. And of course, everybody knows about the official books, which is the official guide. It's, you know, the new version has also been launched. You have the quantitative reasoning, verbal reasoning, and you have the data insights review as well. All of these books are also available for both the versions now. And in addition to all of these things, there are 3, you know, sets of question banks also available, which is like 100 questions each of quantitative reasoning and verbal reasoning and data insights. Plus, it's available for both the versions of the exam. So you can practice using those things, but yeah, I can't really comment upon, you know, test preparation centers though.
Okay, so there is a lot of material that is available that you can use to practice or to understand the kind of questions that will come your way. However, the center, exam center, how much do they take for training is a separate question that is not Seema is going to be able to help you with. Okay, so Akash is asking, how much preparation would you suggest to score 700 plus? And how important is GMAT if you want to apply for scholarships in the US?
Pretty important actually. I mean, most of them you'd find that GMAT exam is a part of their eligibility criteria. So if you're looking at, like, there are a lot of them. I mean, you have these merit-based scholarships, then you have the need-based scholarships. You have your external scholarships, you have diversity and gender-based scholarships as well. When I say external scholarships, that have a lot to do with foundations and other charities and other bodies. So it's one of the criteria, it's one of the necessity in terms of like most of the universities when it comes to the funding for international students, especially. So yeah, again, you know, I think the most important thing I would say here is you will have to actually look at the schools that you are applying to, and then you can just go look up the website there, or, you know, you can write to the scholarship office to get the most accurate information. Each year, the relevant information gets updated. So I think that's what is important in this case. Now, talking about preparation time, I'd say start off with a practice exam. Okay. See where you are at right now. See where your areas of strengths are and where your areas of focus is. And accordingly, then you'll be able to set a study, you know, you'll be able to plan your study schedule. The moment you actually plan your study schedule, then you'll be able to assess as to how much time you need for, you know, getting to the score that you're talking about, 700. But so as my point is that it does really vary from people to people, one person to another. Also, with respect to 700, now that somebody has kind of like touched upon that topic, if you look at the intake for, let's say, Harvard, Stanford, I'm not like top B schools, okay? you'd find that the starting, so there's an average score and there is a score range of the class of, let's say, 2022. You'd find that the starting of the score range is like 530, 610, 650, meaning that these schools have accepted candidates who have scored these scores also. Just putting it out there.
So don't look at 700 plus. There are schools, the top Ivy League schools that also accept 650
Yeah,
plus.
yeah.
So
There's a lot of things that go into the entire profile. So yeah.
Correct. So don't chase a number. Just go ahead, give it your best, and think about it. Prepare well, and everything will fall into place.
Yeah.
Will the Focus Edition be recognized worldwide?
100%. I mean, the acceptance that I spoke to you about, like the 7,700 programs and all of those things, that stay true for the Focus Edition as well. You know, in terms of certain universities which have been communicating that, you know, this admission cycle, then they are taking the current version of the GMAT. They're just trying to be clear in their communication that, you know, don't get confused. I mean, if you look at Harvard, if you look at ISB and everybody, they want to make sure that, you know, I know that a lot of candidates are kind of confused as to, you know, do I take this or that? And they're making the decision very easy. That's it. But once the phasing out happens, the Focus Edition is the new GMAT. I mean, there are no two versions. Eventually, there's going to be just one version, and of course, it's going to be the same level of acceptance. And I've already mentioned that the business schools have worked with us to actually bring about these changes. So it's not like, you know, we just went about and then just created this out of the blue one day. So it doesn't work like that. And also, the current version score also will be accepted because GMAT scores are valid for 5 years. So if you have taken the GMAT this year, let's say, your score will be valid for the next 5 years, you know, and that does not change. So both the scores will be considered by the business schools for the stipulated period that it is valid for.
So there's no reason to be apprehensive. There is no reason to be skeptical. These are two exams that have the same standing in all of the universities. This is a revamped version. Your current Focus Edition as well as your original GRE scores, if you've given the original GMAT, remain valid for a period of 5 years from the date when you take it, if I'm correct, and there is no confusion or there is no difference in the standing of both. So don't be skeptical as to whether this is different or this means something different. It's just a revamped version of your popular GMAT exam, and that is what it is. Okay, so some students are still asking about the hours of preparation, and as Seema has answered multiple times, to each his own. It depends on how much practice you do. It depends on what is the level of seriousness, what is the time that you're giving, what is the, you know, what stage of life are you at, how much of that mental capability are you being able to offer to that particular section that you read in writing, speaking, etc. So she will not be able to give you one magic number. There is no magic number.
But I'd say that, you know, go to mba.com, get your 8-week of study schedule, see what works for you. I mean, with the prep material, and then you'll be able to like work backwards from that. I mean, you can try that as well. But yeah, create your schedule. I'd say like the end answer, one final answer would be like, you know, take the practice exam, create your schedule, see how you can work it out.
Okay, so you have a solution right there.
Yeah.
Okay. So there are a lot of questions that talk about specific programs, upGrad abroad programs, and how to take them. As mentioned before, my colleague Arushi, can you please put in our email address? So all of the questions that are very specific related to, I want this program at this university, and you've already, I think, gone through our website as to what I can figure out. Please drop in your contact number and your email ID on our handle, and we will make sure that you get expert counseling, you get proper guidance as to what is required of you at this point in time. Don't fret, there is time. So please drop in your number on the email address that Arushi will be mentioning in the chat section. Apart from that, she's also put in our social media handles. You can follow us there. You can drop in a DM with any confusion that you have, and we'll make sure that an expert answers your question. Okay. So you have enrolled. So I see a learner, Poonam Pal. She's saying, I have enrolled in IU Berlin for 90 ECTS, 6 months online, 1 year on campus. So this is an upGrad abroad program. Can I get scholarship? What exam do I have to get? Poonam, this is a very good question. Please put in your number and email address on the email address that's mentioned, or DM us if that is more convenient on Instagram or Facebook, or whatever is more convenient for you, and we'll get back to you. We'll get back and solve your query. Okay, so Subhash Smita Mishra, you just joined and you want to know what's the difference between focused and current version. So Seema has discussed all of the differences in detail. This webinar will be live on our website. Also, you will be sent the links once the webinar is processed. So don't worry. Start from the beginning, because right now we can't encapsulate 1 hour of a webinar again. So please watch the webinar in detail. It will be there on our YouTube channel as well. So you can go ahead and check it out there. Is it advisable to give the focused edition exam if someone is starting to plan an exam for the first time? Seema.
Okay. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you are looking at the following years in terms of your timelines, I think, yeah, you can definitely go for the focus edition. But if you're looking at, I think it would be a bit stretching your time a bit. But even then, if you're looking for the round 1, round 2 this year, then I'd say current version of the GMAT. So it depends upon what you are looking to or when you're actually applying. So if you're not applying for this year, I mean the end of this year, like the round 1s and round 2s, I think you can wait out and then take the focus. But if you are not, and if you are actually applying immediately, then please take the current version of the GMAT.
So it all depends on when you plan yourself. Yeah. When does that planning come into effect? If you've just started planning and you've just started thinking about it, then maybe you can give the focused one, because it's new and more efficient. But if in case you've already decided to go for any intake in 2024, always advisable to go for the current standing GMAT original exam. That will help you get your scores and everything faster. Okay, so we'll take one last question, which is, what's the best study material to study from?
I think I've just kind of like repeated that a bit. That is the official prep material. I think everybody uses that as well. The official guide and the quant review, verbal review, and then if you want to get more practice exams done, you have the practice exams as well. I mean, the first and 1 and 2 is free, which is available once you sign up, and you have the 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 as well. And the question banks that I spoke to you about, that is the question sets for quant, verbal, and data insights like later. But then currently we have for the current sections as well. They are retired questions. That means taken from the previous GMAT exams, the questions that have been retired from the exams, the GMAT exam. So you're literally practicing with the questions that do appear on the GMAT. So I can't I don't think you can have a better option than that. I'd strongly suggest everybody to just create your accounts on the mba.com, explore the free resources that you actually have, because there are quite a lot. But do make sure that when you are creating your account, you enter your name either as in the passport, or your if you're going to take the online version as in the Aadhaar card or passport, whichever works for you. And the date of birth as well. Don't add random things, because you do need to contact the customer support to change your name. So please make sure you're entering the right details.
Seema, if I could request you to just put the website that you were talking about in the chat box, so that somebody is not aware.
Just a moment.
Yes. So Seema is putting in the prep material website link in the chat box. You can have a look, save it, use all of the material that is there, and then once you've gone through all of that, maybe look out for more material. But as
so I think my this thing is not going to everybody. If you could share that.
Arushi, could you please share what Seema is sharing? Because I think maybe the panelists can see that. Yeah. Again, thank you so much, Seema, for being a part of this webinar. I think it was very insightful, and all of the information that you've given was given in such a simple, crisp, yet very informative way. I think
I'm glad.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I think it was a very, very good webinar in terms of learning how to ace the GMAT and understanding basics. I think sometimes that is very, very crucial for students. When you start dreaming about going abroad, I think these are certain very important steps that you need to understand rather than just rush into. So thank you so much for sparing your time and coming here and helping learners, giving them so much of information. This webinar will be available, and the handles are mentioned in the chat box. If you want to connect with us, if you want more help, more questions are there, more counseling is needed, feel free to write in and we will arrange a free counseling session for you. Seema, thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much, Prajita. It has been a lot of, it has been really engaging, and it has been my pleasure. And I want to thank you for making it as interactive. And I want to thank all the participants for all the questions as well. If you have more, you can definitely go to the website like that I've shared, like mba.com. That's the official website. And you will get all of your information there, or you can catch me on LinkedIn as well. I try to kind of like answer as many questions as possible. You'll find me with the same name. So yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar. We can end the webinar now.